Am I the antagonist for not being willing to split my daughter's education fund with my stepson? My daughter, 15 female, has a 529 that my ex-husband and I set up and have been paying into. She has about $73K in there for her college. My ex-husband and I broke up amicably, so we still have been contributing jointly. My current husband and I started dating 6 years ago and got married 3 years ago. His son, 18 male, is attending college this fall and is paying out of pocket. His ex-wife and him apparently didn't save anything for his son, and so he has to take out loans. He brought up the idea of splitting my daughter's college fund with his son because she is a few years from needing it, so he thought I could take out half of what I put in to give to him. I told him I've been paying for my daughter way longer than we've been together, and she knows there's money set aside for her schooling. No one is entitled to it but her. He laughed it off and accused me of being too serious. Last night, though, he brought it up again and got more demanding, saying his son is going to be stuck with a ton of debt, and I've known him since he was 12, and I have an obligation to help. I told him he has to help his son, and I never agreed to help his son pay for college, especially not through my daughter's fund. He got angry and accused me of not loving his son, otherwise I would be sharing the college fund, and drove off. He came back after a few hours and apologized, and then this afternoon after work brought up me helping his son with college again, which I shot down, and he got angry at me for it again. NTA, his son isn't entitled to the fund that you and your ex-husband is funding. Your ex-husband isn't doing that for him, he's doing it for his daughter. He could ask you to currently help his son out, but even then, if you say no, it's not fair for him to get mad. NTA. And draw a line in the sand. Make sure your husband knows that the money will never be going towards his son. And he should never ask again. Seriously, draw that line in the sand. I'm mad that he's already brought it up so many times. Good on you for standing your ground. If your husband doesn't listen, have your ex-husband spell it out for him clear as day, because he put in money into that too. I'm sure your ex would be livid, your daughter would be livid, and you need to be livid. This has nothing to do about loving your stepson. You can love him with all your heart and still not screw over your daughter. NTA's his poor planning is not your problem. He's had 18 years to plan. You and your ex are paying for it, and I'm sure your ex would not want his money going to his ex's new partner's son. It was not a fair thing for your husband to ask, and the fact that he even thought to ask it is strange. Keep standing your ground with this. That is your daughter's money and future. Am I the antagonist for not wearing contacts on a double date? I, 25 female, was recently set up on a blind date with a friend of my sister's, 30 female, boyfriend, 30 male. She was really excited about it and refused to give me any details about him, but said I'd know him when I saw him, and I did. It turns out her boyfriend's friend was my former middle school crush, 27 male. We went to a small middle school, so everything was everyone's business, so he knew about it. It was sort of embarrassing, but I'm also hot now for the first time after losing a lot of weight, so I don't really care. The issue arose when my date, Eric, asked me what happened to my eye. He knew me before I started wearing contacts and encouraged me to take them out if I was comfortable. I have heterochromia, one blue eye, one brown. Ever since I started high school, I've been wearing brown contacts for a variety of reasons. The first is because my vision is awful. The second is for my own comfort. Most people are normal about it, but I've had some people be aggressive about proving that my eyes are fake. The third is because my sister didn't want me taking attention away from her during her senior year of high school, so she asked me to wear contacts. After she graduated, I stopped wearing them, but whenever I would do anything with her, she would request that I wear contacts to cover up my condition. I do it automatically whenever I see her now because if I don't, she'll get really withdrawn and start crying. Anyway, my sister was really happy that the date went well and suggested that we all go out together. We ended up going to a local farm/garden center. I decided not to wear my contacts because my eyes tend to get very irritated with the combination of the heat and the dust. My sister knows this, so I figured her suggesting this particular venue was her way of giving me permission to come in just glasses. When her boyfriend saw my eyes, he was fascinated. He kept asking me questions about it and making jokes. At the end of the day, he wanted to take a group photo but had us do it inside the store so no one would have to wear sunglasses. Afterwards, I got a text from my sister saying, "Thanks for ruining a good day." I eventually texted her back, saying I didn't want to make things weird, but she could have told him about the eye thing beforehand. She never responded, but I got a phone call from my mom a few hours ago berating me for ruining my sister's wedding. Apparently, the reason she was so upset was that she's secretly been engaged for the past week. Only my mom knew. They were waiting until after my mom's birthday to announce it. The sister didn't want her fiancé or his family to know about my eyes until after the wedding, so I would look normal in pictures and his family wouldn't harass me about it, which I sort of appreciate. I feel awful that she's fighting with her BF over me, and I'm kicking myself for not just wearing contacts. I love my sister and I don't want her to be upset. Despite her thing with my eyes, we've always been really close. NTA, I can't even believe it needs to be said. Your sister and mother are awful. You didn't ruin anything, and sis needs a reality check if she thinks your eyes ruined her day or will ruin her wedding. Life is going to be really hard for her. FYI, a lot of people think heterochromia is cool as fuck. Don't let small-minded AHs make you feel like there's anything wrong with you. NTA, your sister is weird as fuck. She's had a hang-up about you having two different colored eyes since you were kids, and somehow that affects her? Pathetic. NTA, sounds like your sister needs some major therapy if she is this insecure about how cool your eyes are. It's good her fiancé found out now before he marries her. This level of childishness at that age is a literal deal-breaker. Your sister and mother's behavior is terrible. You in no way ruined anything, and heterochromia sound very cool. Your sister sounds extremely jealous and like she can't handle her emotions. She should get some help, or she is going to struggle throughout her life. Am I the antagonist for taking in my niece despite my husband's complaints even though we are child-free? 25 female and 27 niece is 3 years old. My sister asked me if we would take her daughter since she had to go out of town for a surgical procedure and wouldn't be able to care for her daughter while she recovers. I ran this by my husband, who immediately said no and shook his head. I said it was my niece, and that just because we weren't really fans of having kids ourselves doesn't mean we can't do a favor for family. It ended in an argument, but I ended up taking her anyway. He refuses to do anything with her. This isn't the first time they've met. He's just never really interacted with her, which I don't expect him to, but when I brought up that he could have a better attitude about this, he just said that I shouldn't have brought a kid into our home. He also went on a rant that because of this I'm probably going to change my mind about having kids, and he won't put up with that. Said like that he will divorce me if I even suggest it. My niece hasn't even been much of a problem. In fact, she's usually quiet unless she's hungry or tired. Yes, she gets into stuff and makes messes, but I assume that's pretty standard toddler behavior. I don't understand why he's so angry, since it's not like he's having to do anything. Edit, I should add that she'll only be here for about a week and a half, maybe longer if my sister has complications, but we don't know yet. Also, I told him he should have a better attitude towards her because I read that kids can tell when you don't like them, and being away from her mom is already hard enough for her. Am I the antagonist? People are saying YTABC. He said no, and that should be a mutual decision, and I would normally agree, but I'd be pretty upset for my partner telling me that I can't help out my sister in a tough situation like that. It's not like it's permanent. For no real reason apart from him not liking kids. This isn't a social visit, it's a family emergency, maybe not urgent, but still vulnerable. And then the comments about divorcing at the mention of wanting kids? That's a big leap, shows where his head at, spoiler, not focused on sister's surgery and well-being of niece, and just a pretty thing to say in general. This is at least an ESH, but personally I'd say not the a-hole. I'm not the a-hole. I'm surprised some people are voting you the AH here. OP did a favor for her sister, who was having a complicated surgery. I'm sure the sister tried finding other means of childcare. This is what family does for one another. Doesn't mean she is entitled to do it, but OP has the empathy to do so, which OP's husband is seriously lacking. NTA, you didn't take her and you're just babysitting for a week or two. And your husband's idea that babysitting will somehow make you change your mind about wanting kids is silly and a bit paranoid. You're an adult, you know your mind, and you're old enough to have spent enough time around children to know what caring for a child means. You can do so when necessary, and you know whether or not you want to long-term. Frankly, his idea that you'd be that likely to change your mind, just from doing a favor for your sister, is insulting to you. He also doesn't get to say he won't put up with you changing your mind. If you do change your mind, that's your right. He doesn't have to stay, but he doesn't get to say he won't put up with you having your own mind about things. You can be child-free all you want, but that doesn't mean you can't help a loved one out in a time of need. Bringing up divorce so quickly is quite strange. Even if this is a deal-breaker for him, he should understand you helping out a family member. A family he became part of when you two got married. You have to do things you don't like for family sometimes. Am I the antagonist for taking my wife's side after she screamed and cursed at my mother? On mobile, throwaway. This just happened and my wife is currently sleeping while my mom is blowing up my phone. I, 33 am married to my wonderful wife Melody, 29 female, and she is currently pregnant with our first child together. I have a 6-year-old daughter Tina, whose mother I split 50-50 custody with, so I know for the most part what Melody needs in order to feel supported while she carries our child. Furthermore, I have been spending lots of time making sure she's comfortable and taking on more of the load at home, so she's not doing too much. This is her first child after all, and it's obviously a lot for her physically and emotionally. My mother and Melody don't get along too well. Mom didn't like my ex either. We broke up because we were headed on different paths, not because of my mother, and there's no bad blood. So I think she just doesn't like her because she's dating me for whatever reason. It's weird. She's very nitpicky about Melody, how much she does around the house, how emotional she is. Melody already cries very easily, and being pregnant has made her even more sensitive, which is fine. The fact that she wants to be a stay-at-home mom, it just seems like nothing Melody does is okay. I do, however, stand up for her and do not just allow my mom to talk down to her. Today, before picking up my daughter from summer camp, Melody went to 3 different grocery stores to find rotisserie chicken. She's been talking about it since last night and really wanted one, lol. She sent me picture messages documenting her quest for the chicken and finally found it. My girl was happy. Rotisserie chicken is also kind of a comfort food for her, like spaghetti, because her mom used to make one of those when she was having a lazy day and didn't feel like cooking. She was planning on serving that with some other basic sides for dinner, perfectly fine by me. My mother came by to see Tina and started telling Melody the chicken is bad for her and she should not be eating that pregnant. Melody said it's fine, she usually eats healthy and just wants this one thing she's craving. My mom went on about how unhealthy it was and said she needs to eat something else. Melody said no and went to the backyard to FaceTime her family, out of state. When she came back, my mom had thrown out the food and ordered takeout, a salad for Melody and pizza for everyone else. Melody asked where the chicken was, and my mother told her she needs to start being a responsible mother and eat correctly for the baby. Melody screamed, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you always such a bitch to me?" She then started crying and called me home. I came back and asked my mother to leave after hearing her story and said she is not to come back until she apologizes for how she treated Melody. My mom went on about how I'm choosing another woman over her, but I just think enough is enough and Melody reached her limit. She apologized to me for blowing up when Tina was in the house, but I told her it's okay, things happen, Tina is okay, and I went to find her another chicken before the store closed. My dad thinks I'm right for taking Melody's side, but my brother thinks I should always defend Mom, so am I the antagonist? NTA, but your mom sure is. As a former pregnant woman, if my mother-in-law would have thrown away food I was craving and ordered me a salad instead, I would have thrown her on a rotisserie and spun her around until she apologized. NTA, glad you went on a hunt for chicken to replace the one your mother trashed. Great husbanding on your end, OP. WTF is wrong with your mom, though? NTA. As far as I know, there's nothing dangerous about eating cooked OFC chicken during pregnancy. You are not in the wrong here at all. There is nothing wrong with eating chicken when pregnant. I would say your mom 100% is in the wrong. Throwing away food that your wife so desperately wanted is terrible. Your mom should know. I think your mom should take a hard look at herself. Am I the antagonist for telling my daughter's teacher that the other kids aren't my problem and she can't dictate what my kid wears? So I 35M have 4 daughters, and my oldest is in high school. She's a freshman and is 5 feet 2 inches. So she can fit some of her mother's clothes because they're not the biggest people on earth, and she can fit my sister's clothes. So my sister is always giving her shirts, pants, shoes, and jackets, things like that. She gave my daughter a leather jacket about a year and a half ago, and she wears it all the time when the weather allows it. My daughter is also a slight sneakerhead, like myself and her mother. So she likes Air Force Ones and Jordans and anything Nike. So she has some nice sneakers in her closet, and she wears them to school. Earlier I got a call from her teacher asking if she could stop wearing her expensive shoes, and I asked why. So she said, some kids are less fortunate than others, and I feel like it's unfair that the other kids wear nice shoes, and they don't. I then asked her if my daughter was rubbing the fact that she had nice sneakers in the other kids' faces, and she told me no. So I asked her why it was a problem then. My kid's not bragging about her shoes, she's just wearing them. She then again said, well, I just feel like it's not fair to the other kids because they're not as fortunate. And they probably feel a little jealous of her sneakers. So I told her, ma'am, with all due respect, those are not my kids, so they're not my problem. I know what it's like to be poor, and so do my kids. They've lived in a shelter 3 times in their lives. They know what it's like to not have expensive things because we simply couldn't afford it. I feel for those kids, I really do, but they're not my children. And you can't dictate what my child wears just because she has nice things. She then got mad at me and said that I was spoiling my child with all these unneeded items and that I could donate to children that are impoverished. So I asked her if she donated to these impoverished children ever in her life, and she told me no, and that they aren't her students or children. So I asked why I should be expected to donate my daughter's stuff for these kids when she herself doesn't even practice what she preaches. She then told me to have a good day and hung up. I then texted the group chat that I'm in with all the students' parents from my daughter's class, and I asked if she told any of the other parents the same thing. A good amount of the parents said yes, that they had gotten a call from her saying things like that today, and that they're not going to stop buying nice things for their kids because others can't afford it. A PTA meeting was scheduled for this Thursday due to the teacher's behavior. And I was wondering if what I said was out of line. So am I the antagonist for what I told my daughter's teacher? As a teacher, this is really weird. Who has the time to make this kind of calls? To multiple people? About fancy shoes? When you're a teacher. NTA, the teacher's behavior was wrong and should be reported. She has an obvious problem with it, not the other kids. It is concerning. NTA. And from an economic perspective, how does the teacher know if parents can replace expensive things with cheap ones? They could have been saved for gifts from relatives, hand-me-downs, or thrifted. Maybe someone could afford 1 pair of decent shoes and then blew their whole shoe budget. Like for someone who claims to speak on behalf of the poor children, expecting everyone to be able to buy a second cheaper pair of shoes or other clothes on top of what they have is a bit of tone deaf. That is a very strange thing for a teacher to say. Why does she have a big problem in a children's shoes? The only time a teacher should be so concerned with a student's shoes is if some laces need to be tied. The teacher's behavior is out of line and I believe should be reported. Am I the antagonist for telling my sister to admit she was a crappy mom? Throwaway account, names changed. I'm 45, Sarah's 51, Tom's 55, and Rose is 26. My sister Sarah is married to Tom, and they have a daughter, Rose. A few weeks ago, Rose and Tom got into an accident. They were carpooling to an event and Sarah was going to go later after work. Thankfully, they're both recovering now, but Rose was significantly worse off than Tom. Sarah got the news, and she called me from the hospital. I was there a few hours after Sarah and they wouldn't let me inside to see them, but Sarah came out and told me the updates on Tom. She hadn't been to see Rose yet, but she said she got her updates from the nurses. I stayed overnight at the hospital. Sarah was with Tom the entire time, and she'd come out occasionally. I'd ask her if she wanted to go to Rose, but she kept crying and saying that she was worried about Tom, so I let it go. Tom was cleared to go home 2 days later, but Rose was in for almost a week, and I was allowed to see her later. Her partner was out of state for work, but he came back and was allowed in as well. During all this, Sarah didn't physically go to see Rose once while Tom was still in, and only went after he went home, so 2 days later. Rose told me that she was hurt her mom didn't come to see her earlier. A couple of days ago, Sarah called me saying she went over to Rose's apartment, but she and her partner were acting very cold towards her, and she's also been ignoring Sarah's calls and texts. I told her that she pretty much neglected Rose at the hospital and hurt her feelings. Sarah said she got Rose's updates and Tom needed her a lot more. I said that Rose's situation was a lot worse, but Sarah said that she was just trying to do her best and Rose is an adult and can push through. I got tired of her excuses, so I told her to just admit that she was a crappy mom to Rose, and she's lucky they let her into the apartment at all. Sarah got upset, said I was enabling Rose's behavior. I haven't talked to her since then, but was I the asshole for saying that? Using your sister's logic, Tom is an adult and can push through for a few hours a day, so she can go check into their daughter face with rolling eyes, not the a-hole. Sarah got upset, said I was enabling Rose's behavior. More like being supportive of Rose's very understandable anger. NTA, I cannot wrap my head around the fact that her daughter was in hospital for a whole week and she didn't visit her once. It makes me wonder what Rose's childhood was like. She didn't go to see her daughter in hospital, even when she was in a more serious condition than her husband. I do not blame Rose at all for being upset. She deserves to be cold towards her mother for that. Good work on calling your sister out on her crap.